Imagine sitting alone in a darkened room. The silence is so complete you can hear your own heartbeat, yet there's this unsettling sense that something or someone is watching. Not from the corner of the room, not from outside the window, but from deep within that quiet place where fear takes root. It's not a sound. It's not a shadow. It's a presence born from the imagination, heavy as fog pressing down on your chest. And this is where the story of so-called occult attacks begins to seep into our collective mind. Today, scroll through TikTok, YouTube, or Reddit, and you'll stumble upon endless streams of videos and posts about curses, hexes, the evil eye, or psychic manipulation. Some swear that a jealous glance ruined their luck. Others claim they've been hexed because their life suddenly spiraled downward. Even if you don't fully believe, the constant repetition plants a seed of doubt. What if? What if someone really did send negative energy your way? This is how human psychology works. We are fascinated by the mysterious, but we are also deeply vulnerable to its shadows. The rational part of us whispers, "There's no proof these things are real." Yet the emotional part can't quite let go of the unease. A shadow outside the window feels like a bad omen. A sudden headache becomes a sign of dark energy. Fear doesn't need evidence, it only needs suggestion. I once heard a story of a man who was told, half in jest, that someone had cursed him. That one comment was enough to rob him of sleep for weeks. By day he worried, by night he dreamed of doom. What destroyed his peace wasn't the curse itself, but his own mind locked in fear. The more he believed it, the more real it became, until his anxiety was the true prison. Maybe you've heard something similar. Someone convinced they were under a spell. Their life consumed not by an enemy's power, but by their own imagination. Here's the truth. Whether or not occult attacks exist, fear itself is real. Fear corrodes peace. Fear tightens the chest, clouds the mind, robs us of joy. It's often not the unseen forces that wound us most, but the way our own thoughts hand them power. And you're not alone if you've felt this way. Thousands carry the same unease, which is why content about curses and psychic warfare spreads like wildfire. Yet the real question isn't, are they real? But how do I remain unshaken even if they are? This is where Stoicism enters, not as superstition, not as ritual, but as a shield of reason and resilience. It doesn't promise to shatter curses or block hexes. It offers something greater, the ability to build an inner fortress so steady that no external threat, seen or unseen, can breach it. And here, on True Stoic Way, we believe that freedom isn't about escaping darkness. It's about cultivating such strength within that no shadow can disturb your calm. Because in the end, it's not the occult attack that destroys most people, it's the surrender to fear. And once you reclaim that power, fear loses its grip. Stoicism has never asked for temples or rituals, nor has it demanded blind faith in gods or spirits. It isn't a religion you have to follow, nor a ceremony you have to perform. It's far simpler and far more profound. Stoicism is a discipline, a daily training of the mind. It's a way of standing firm in a world that is constantly trying to shake you. And when fear of unseen threats begins to creep into your life, this philosophy offers a shield unlike any other. The Stoics spoke of something they called the inner citadel, a fortress within yourself, one no enemy can breach unless you throw the gates open. You may lose wealth, you may lose health, even loved ones can be taken from you. But the inner citadel remains untouched if you guard it. It is the one place where you are sovereign, where your freedom cannot be stolen. Marcus Aurelius himself, surrounded by war and betrayal, wrote that the mind can retreat into itself and stand unbroken. That image of an unshakable fortress is the very essence of Stoicism. Central to this fortress is a principle that seems deceptively simple, but has the power to transform everything: the dichotomy of control. Some things are within our power, others are not. What is within our power? Our thoughts, our judgments, our choices, our reactions. What is not within our power? The weather, the economy, the opinions of others, the whispers of gossip, and yes, even curses, hexes, or so-called negative energy. Once you see the line clearly, you stop wasting strength on the things you cannot touch, and you direct your energy inward, where your control is absolute. Think of it like this. Imagine someone spreads a rumor that you've been cursed. Perhaps they glare at you with the so-called evil eye, or claim they've used some spell to ruin your fortune. The natural reaction is panic, anxiety, sleepless nights. But pause, ask yourself, is this within my control? Can I stop their thoughts? Can I erase their words? No. What I can control is how I meet the moment. I can refuse to fuel the fire of fear. I can choose calm over chaos. I can treat their curse as nothing more than empty air. In that act, the power shifts. The curse dies because I did not give it life. I once knew a man who was told by neighbors that someone had put a spell on him. For days, he worried himself sick. Every minor setback became evidence. A flat tire, a lost wallet, a headache. But the moment he realized these were ordinary troubles and not dark magic, his fear evaporated. He laughed at himself, and in laughing, he reclaimed his power. That is Stoicism in action, not denying that others might wish you harm, but denying them the right to disturb your inner state. And this is the invitation of Stoicism, to build your inner citadel so strong that when the world hurls storms, or when shadows whisper of curses, you stand unmoved. The fortress is not built in a day, but every reflection, every moment of self-discipline, every choice to respond with reason instead of fear, each of these lays another stone in the wall. This is why a true Stoic way, we don't talk about superstition as chains that bind us. We talk about freedom, about reclaiming the authority over your own mind. Because when you recognize the dichotomy of control, when you live as the guardian of your inner citadel, no curse, no rumor, no shadow can truly touch you. The only way in is if you open the door. So the question becomes, will you hand over your peace to unseen forces, or will you hold the keys to your fortress and guard it with wisdom? There's a simple but powerful practice at the heart of Stoicism called process attentiveness. It is the art of standing still for a moment and watching your own mind. Instead of rushing into panic, you pause and ask, is this real, or is this fear dressing itself up as reality? That small pause is often enough to change everything. When we are attentive, we can separate truth from illusion, danger from rumor, what matters from what never deserved our energy in the first place. This is especially crucial when it comes to fears of the unseen. The imagination loves to play tricks. It turns a coincidence into a curse, a setback into a spell. But through Stoic attentiveness, you learn to stop, examine, and strip away the layers of superstition. You ask, what exactly has happened? Am I inventing the rest in my head? That habit of questioning pulls the teeth out of fear. The Stoics also trained with something called negative visualization. At first it seems odd, why imagine the worst? But the purpose is not to frighten yourself, it's to prepare yourself. Picture the worst-case scenario. Suppose someone really did curse you, what then? Would your life collapse instantly? Or would you continue breathing, eating, working, living, as countless people do every day? The visualization strips the terror away. You see that even if the worst arrived, it would not be the end. You would endure. You would adapt. The fear loses its sharp edge because you have already met it in your mind. I recall the story of a woman convinced she had been hexed. Every headache, every restless night, every misfortune was proof. The fear consumed her until she could barely function. But then she took a different path. Instead of chasing cures for the curse, she began to focus on what she could control. She cleaned up her diet. She started walking each morning. She practiced journaling before bed, reflecting on her day. Slowly, something shifted. Her sleep improved. Her body grew stronger. The curse did not vanish. What vanished was her belief in it. By directing her attention to her health, her choices, her state of mind, she reclaimed the very power she thought had been stolen. That is the essence of Stoic reasoning. Fear is not usually born from reality. Fear is born from imagination exaggerated, from the mind feeding on itself. We think ourselves into terror. But once you shine the light of rational reflection on those fears, they shrink back into shadows where they belong. This is why Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that things are not as frightening as they seem, but only as frightening as we allow them to be in judgment. The Stoic path is about detoxing the mind, removing the poison of superstition, and replacing it with the steady clarity of reason. Here on True Stoic Way, we return again and again to this practice. Step back, reflect, strip fear down to its bones. When you do, you will see how often you have been haunted not by dark forces, but by your own unchecked imagination. And once you know that, you are free. Because in the end, the shadows lose their grip not when you fight them, but when you understand them for what they are: empty forms, powerless without your belief. The Stoics believed that the greatest shield a human being can carry is not a sword, not an amulet, not even a ritual, it is virtue. Virtue, they taught, is the one thing no one can strip away from you. And they defined it through 4 pillars: wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. These aren't abstract ideals. They are living practices, daily choices that build the kind of character no fear, no rumor, no occult attack can pierce. Wisdom comes first. It is the ability to see clearly, to judge rightly. Wisdom protects you from being dragged around by every whisper of superstition. When someone says, "They've cursed you," wisdom asks, "Where is the proof? What are the facts?" Wisdom refuses to surrender to suggestion without evidence. It is the sober voice that says, "This is only a story unless I choose to believe it." And in that moment, the imagined chain falls away. Courage follows close behind. Even when fear rises, because yes, fear will always rise, courage steps forward. Courage doesn't mean you feel no fear. It means you do not run from it. You look the imagined curse, the supposed hex, the anxious thought in the eye and say, "If this is real, I will still endure." Courage breaks the spell of dread by proving you are stronger than the shadows cast against you. Temperance is the steady hand, the middle way. When panic tempts you to overreact, to lash out, to waste energy in desperate rituals, temperance calls you back to balance. It reminds you that most of life is not in extremes. You don't need to deny your fear, but you don't need to bow to it either. You walk the calm path between. In doing so, you refuse to give fear more weight than it deserves. Justice might seem unrelated at first, but it is crucial. When something goes wrong, a failed project, an illness, a betrayal, it is tempting to blame dark forces. Justice refuses to point fingers at unseen enemies. Justice insists on fairness, on owning your part, on not letting resentment toward imagined attackers poison your heart. And in that fairness, you remain free of paranoia, free of the bitterness that makes the mind its own tormentor. Together, these 4 virtues create an armor no unseen hand can pierce. The person who lives by them becomes unshakable, because their strength does not depend on luck, or on others' goodwill, or on fragile superstitions. Their strength comes from within. And here is another secret weapon: gratitude. Fear feeds on darkness, but gratitude shines light. When you feel haunted by unseen forces, pause and count what is good, what is solid, what is real: your family, your friends, your health, the breath filling your lungs this very second. Gratitude reorients the mind away from what might harm you to what already sustains you. And in that light, the shadows shrink. I once knew a man who, after years of obsession with being cursed, began a new practice. Each morning he wrote down 3 things he was grateful for. Some days it was simple: a good meal, a quiet walk, the laughter of his child. Slowly, the grip of superstition loosened. Why? Because gratitude shifted his focus. Instead of feeding fear, he fed joy. And joy is a shield no curse can penetrate. This is the power of virtue. A person who lives in wisdom, who acts with courage, who practices balance, who treats others fairly, and who gives thanks daily, such a person is nearly impossible to manipulate. The whispers of occult threats cannot control them, because their mind is not fertile soil for fear. Their fortress is built not of stone, but of character. And this is what we strive for here on True Stoic Way. Not to chase shadows, not to fear curses, but to cultivate lives of such integrity and inner light that no darkness can touch us. Virtue is the shield, and gratitude is the torch. With these in hand, you walk through the night unafraid. We began this journey in the shadows where fear of unseen forces, whispered curses, and invisible threats gnaw at peace of mind. But step by step, with the guidance of Stoicism, we have walked out of that darkness and into the light of reason. We've seen that what frightens us most is rarely the event itself, but the story our imagination weaves around it. And we've learned that while we cannot silence the world's rumors, nor stop others from believing in spells or curses, we can build something far greater, the unshaken fortress of our own mind. But philosophy is not meant to remain in theory. To live as a modern Stoic is to practice daily the art of guarding your inner citadel. One powerful exercise is journaling. Each day, write down what troubled you, list your fears, then divide them. What lies within my control? What does not? You'll be surprised to see how much anxiety dissolves when exposed on paper. What remains is clarity. Here are the things I can act on. Here are the things I must release. Begin the morning with reflection. As you rise, remind yourself, no one can harm me unless I allow it. My peace depends only on my own judgment. These words, spoken at dawn, set the tone for the entire day. When fear tries to sneak in, you already have your shield raised. Close the evening with a review. Look back and ask, how did I respond to challenges? Did I let fear guide me, or did I hold steady? Did I stay true to my values, or did I hand my calm to superstition? This nightly practice strengthens the walls of your fortress one brick at a time. The beauty of this path is that what others see as an attack, whether gossip, envy, or even the idea of occult forces, you can see as training. Each moment of fear becomes a chance to practice reason. Each rumor becomes an opportunity to test your courage. Each superstition becomes a lesson in clarity. In this way, the very things meant to unsettle you become fuel for growth. This is the empowering truth. When you live with a Stoic mindset, so-called occult attacks lose their teeth. They stop being threats and start being tests, reminders that your strength lies not in charms or rituals, but in the discipline of your own soul. Picture a tree in the storm. The wind howls, branches shake, but the tree does not fall. Why? Because its roots run deep. The storms of life will always come, whether they carry curses, rumors, or invisible fears. But the Stoic stands like that tree, unshaken, rooted in wisdom, courage, balance, and justice. This is the path of the modern Stoic, not to deny that darkness exists, but to shine so steadily that darkness cannot control us. Not to fear the unseen, but to transform it into strength. And here, on True Stoic Way, that is the journey we walk together, building an inner citadel so firm that no storm, no curse, no unseen enemy can tear it down. Because in the end, peace is not granted by the world. Peace is claimed by the soul that refuses to bow. Occult attacks may well be illusions, shadows without substance, but the peace you build through Stoicism, that is real, unshakable, eternal. No curse, no rumor, no whisper of dark energy can touch the mind that has trained itself to see clearly and to stand firm. The fortress within you, once built, cannot be toppled by forces outside. This is the promise of the Stoic path, freedom not from the world, but from the grip of fear. You learn that safety does not come from charms or rituals, but from wisdom, courage, and the steady discipline of the soul. And once you taste that freedom, life changes. The unseen no longer rules you. You rule yourself. If this message resonates with you, if you want to go deeper into the timeless practices that guard your peace and strengthen your mind, I invite you to subscribe to True Stoic Way. Here we walk this path together, stone by stone, building an inner citadel so strong that nothing, seen or unseen, can break it. Because in the end, the greatest shield is not superstition. It is the mind trained in virtue and the heart at peace with itself. And that shield is already in your hands.